What if the reason you're struggling isn't because you're weak, but because you're alone? Welcome back to the channel that challenges the noise, rewrites the narrative, and brings clarity to the chaos. This is Men and Masculinity. If you're tired of shallow takes and looking for deeper truths, you've come to the right place. Subscribe now and join a growing brotherhood of thinkers, doers, and warriors. Men who refuse to be numb and invisible in a world that wants them silent. Now let's dive into a truth that no one's saying out loud, but every man feels. There's a man in his late 30s sitting in a parked car in a quiet parking lot. His hands are on the steering wheel, his forehead pressed against them. He isn't crying. He hasn't for years, but his chest feels like it's caving in. He's successful by most standards, a job, a partner, a roof. But he hasn't had a real conversation with another man in over 3 years. No guidance, no older mentor, no inner circle, just podcasts and social media. He wonders if he's losing his mind. Now multiply that story by 1,000,000. What we're seeing isn't a crisis of masculinity. It's a crisis of isolation. And that loneliness isn't just psychological, it's physiological. Men without strong social bonds are more likely to die younger, experience depression, and spiral in silence. But it hasn't always been this way. Once upon a time, boys didn't grow into men alone. They were initiated into it. In tribal societies from Africa to the Amazon, when a boy reached a certain age, he was taken from his mother, not abandoned, but entrusted to the company of men. In the Australian Aboriginal walkabout, the Maasai lion hunt, or Native American vision quests, there was always one thing in common: the presence of elder men. These mentors didn't just teach hunting or rituals, they transmitted identity. They told the boy, "This is what you're made of." Today, that rite of passage is often replaced by a browser history full of confusion, shame, and noise. Without mentors, boys drift. And worse, they become men with no compass, measuring themselves against chaos instead of wisdom. The culture might tell you, figure it out yourself. But that's not strength, that's neglect. Here's the twist. Isolation mimics weakness. You begin to question your instincts. You overthink simple choices. You become hyper-aware of your failures because there's no one to mirror back your wins. Most men think they're the only ones feeling this way. But science tells a different story. In a study published in the Journal of Men's Health, researchers found that over 40% of adult men report feeling chronically lonely, and that percentage is higher in countries where male emotional expression is discouraged. Another study from Harvard labeled loneliness as the new smoking, linking it to a higher risk of premature death than obesity or alcohol abuse. But let's go deeper. This isn't just about survival, it's about potential. Think of the men who shaped history: Martin Luther King Jr., Marcus Aurelius, Leonardo da Vinci. None of them walked alone. Marcus Aurelius was mentored by Junius Rusticus, whose guidance helped shape the core Stoic principles we still quote today. Da Vinci had Verrocchio. King had Howard Thurman. Even warriors needed mentors. Samurai in feudal Japan followed the Bushido code passed down through generations. Apprenticeship wasn't just about swordplay, it was about character. Without a master to study, the blade was aimless. In modern terms, a man without a mentor is like a fighter without a corner. You might be brave, but you're bleeding alone. But mentorship isn't always grand and formal. Sometimes it's a single moment that redirects a man's entire trajectory. A 19-year-old Navy recruit once failed his swimming test and faced expulsion. A stern but empathetic officer took him aside and said, "You're not weak, you just don't trust yourself yet." That man stayed in the Navy. He became an elite SEAL. And later, he mentored hundreds more. That recruit was Jocko Willink. Masculine mentorship is about transference of strength, not pity, not therapy. It's one man saying to another, "You don't have to carry this alone. I've walked this road too. Let me show you what's around the bend." But if this kind of strength is so powerful, why is it so rare? Because in the modern world, we've mistaken disconnection for independence. We're told that real men don't ask for help, that vulnerability equals weakness, that success must be self-made. But that narrative is killing us. The ancient Greeks had a word, philia, brotherly love, not romantic, not transactional, the deep, steady loyalty between comrades. It was sacred. In the Iliad, Achilles' grief over Patroclus wasn't just poetic. It was the fuel that drove him to fight 1,000 warriors. Because a brother lost, his strength diminished. In today's language, we might call it male friendship. But it's deeper than beers and banter. It's one man sharpening another, like iron sharpens iron. And without that, men dull. Here's a brutal truth. The longer you go without a male mentor, the more likely you are to pass that absence to the next generation. Sons raised by unmentored fathers don't learn by instruction. They learn by absence. They don't inherit wisdom. They inherit confusion. And round it goes. But there's a turning point, and maybe this is your moment. Maybe you've felt that ache, the sense that something is missing. You've tried self-help, tried motivation, tried grinding, but nothing sticks. That's not weakness. That's a missing connection. And the cure isn't more isolation. It's guidance. It's brotherhood. It's choosing to be seen by another man who gets it. This isn't about therapy. This is about tribe. But where do you even find a mentor in a world that feels so disconnected? Sometimes they're hidden in plain sight. The older guy at the gym who never talks trash but always shows up. The father of a friend who seems to carry himself with quiet confidence. The coach who doesn't flatter but tells the truth. The man at work who leads by example, not by ego. And sometimes mentors are found through books, history, or even content like this. Digital sparks that ignite real-world change. Because once your eyes are open, the right voices find you, but you must seek them. And here's the twist you didn't expect. One day, you might become that mentor to someone else. What happens when men find mentors? Real ones? They stop drifting. Their speech sharpens. Their posture changes. They walk like someone who knows he has backup, even when he's alone. Confidence isn't built in isolation. It's witnessed into being. And the final truth is this. The power of mentorship doesn't just add to your life. It multiplies it. If you've ever sat in silence wondering why the fire inside you keeps fading, maybe it's time to stop trying to fix everything alone. Maybe it's time to remember who you are, with the help of someone who's already seen what lies ahead. Because you're not broken. You're just isolated, and the cure isn't more strength. It's brotherhood. The truth is, no man builds a life worth living completely alone. The myth of the lone wolf is just that, a myth. In nature, the lone wolf doesn't symbolize freedom. He symbolizes exile. Separation from the pack means slow death, no backup in the hunt, no protection when injured, no one to howl with under the moon. And yet our society glorifies this exile, painting it as noble independence. It whispers in your ear that asking for help is weakness, that needing someone is failure. But that whisper is a lie, because strength isn't about silence. It's about resilience, and resilience is born through connection. Look around at the cultures that survived hardship for generations. The Spartans, the Vikings, the Plains tribes, the Mongols. They all raised boys with one core principle. Learn from the man who came before you. Not to copy him, but to carry the fire forward. You can't carry the fire if no one ever lit it in you. And this is where the modern man often stumbles. Not because he lacks courage, but because he lacks someone to pass the torch. You may be thinking, I didn't have that father figure, that mentor, that guide. So what now? That's where the power of choice enters the picture. You weren't handed the torch, but you can forge your own. And in doing so, you begin a new chain, a new legacy. You might be the first in your bloodline to break the silence, to build with intention, to stand shoulder to shoulder with another man and say, let's rise together. Imagine what that does, not just to you, but to the men around you. When one man reclaims his masculine identity, it doesn't just shift his life, it shifts generations. I want you to picture something. It's 5 years from now. You're walking into a room. Maybe it's your home, a gym, a campfire circle. And there are younger men there. Boys who remind you of who you once were. And they're looking at you, not for answers to everything, but for a reflection of what's possible. They're watching how you carry pain without collapsing, how you hold your ground without aggression, how you speak your truth without shame. And maybe one of them asks you, how did you become like this? and without even thinking you say, I found my mentor. Or maybe, he found me when I was finally ready to listen. And in that moment, you become the mentor. That's the cycle reborn. That's legacy. In this digital age, we have more access to knowledge than ever before. But information isn't transformation. You don't become a king by watching videos. You become one by living with intention and surrounding yourself with men who sharpen your blade. So here's the challenge I want to leave with you tonight. Take one step toward connection. Message that older man you respect and ask to buy him coffee. Join that group you've been quietly watching from afar. Start showing up not just for yourself, but for others. Because waiting for a mentor to magically appear is like waiting for your life to change without action. You're not waiting for a savior. You're calling for a mirror, someone who reflects who you're becoming back to you with clarity and conviction. You're not weak. You're isolated. And isolation is a wound that heals when two men look each other in the eye and say, let's walk this path together. Let's return for a moment to the man in the parking lot, the one with his hands on the wheel. He doesn't know it yet, but tonight, he's going to walk into a small men's group at a local community center. He almost won't. He'll sit in his car for 10 minutes debating whether to leave. But something will nudge him, a line he heard once. Real courage is showing up when you'd rather disappear. He walks in, quietly, no expectations. An older man notices his silence. He doesn't pry. He just nods, gives him space, and says 4 words that change everything. I've been there too. That's the beginning of healing, of strength, of brotherhood. And now, it's your turn. You've made it this far into the video because something in you recognizes this truth. Maybe you've been the lone wolf too long. Maybe you're ready to reclaim the part of you that stopped believing anyone could understand. Or maybe, just maybe, you're ready to become the man you once needed. If this message hit something deep, if it made you pause, breathe, or remember, don't just sit with it. Act on it. Comment below and tell us where you're at in your journey. Maybe another man will read your words and feel less alone. Maybe you will. And don't forget to subscribe. This channel isn't just about content. It's about connection. It's about rebuilding the tribe. Because the world doesn't just need stronger men. It needs connected men. And it starts with you.